Uh, Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and we are still having technical issues, technical problems, but we have our guest, my colleague. I got to bring him in before they start messing with the program again, as always. And I got to say, how's it going, Greg? It's going to be a delay because something is going on with them. How's it going, Greg?
It's going great. I'm
Can you
finally
hear me?
thankful to be back here. I do apologize for last week. I wrote the wrong day, man. I'm telling you, I'm losing it at my old age. I really,
If you can hear my chickens out in the yard and stuff. They're doing their thing out there, so we'll ignore them for a minute. But Greg, there'll probably be some type of delay. I tried to get everything in order. We used new software, new programming. I called the internet provider. They did troubleshooting everything,
you
and they're
seem
telling me
okay.
that it's got to be the stream. Okay,
You seem
okay,
okay
but
now.
I know
Yeah.
it does a lot of buffering and delaying on my end.
Oh,
Okay. So, Greg, it's something that you wrote. I want to that you sent out to us, in the emails, and you sent it out yesterday. And where is it at? Let me pull it up real quick. You said the 10-year yield is spiking. Is this
mhm.
the beginning of a super meltdown? Let's see. Could you elaborate on what you were alluding to and what prompted you to send that out?
Well, absolutely. Look, the debt market is the driver of everything. It is the number one reason. The suppression of rates now for more than a decade, and the suppression of bond yields has been the number one reason why we've seen this reinflating of a stock market bubble, a reinflating of a housing bubble. Now, yesterday, up until the last few days, this 10-year yield has been spiking like you can't believe. We hit 4.2 yesterday. Right now, as we are doing this, we have cratered to 4.08. The relative strength of the dollar has fallen to the floor, and the stock market is in a full-on rally mode. I've been telling people for several days. I said I don't think this is it. I don't think it's over. I think that this is a presidential selection cycle. They're going to prop up this market, and boom, right before our freaking eyeballs, we got the cavalry here. Who's buying all this debt? Is this the regular guy or the regular girl? You know what it would take to push the 10-year yield down 12 basis points in a few hours? Enormous amounts of debt buying. So this is the Fed right now coming to the rescue of the market. Interestingly, the video I did this morning, I said, the confidence is the driver of this market. If the market loses confidence that the Fed is not going to backstop the market, this market could fall, and I mean big. So today, just like clockwork, the Fed jumps in here. We had the Mannarino Market Risk Indicator, the MMRI, again on my website, traderschoice.net, free to anyone, which is a real-time stock market risk indicator. It was rising and rising and rising. The stocks were falling and falling and falling. All of a sudden, we get this. I mean, to see this in real time is kind of amazing to me. But eventually, look, this is going to turn around. And there's no doubt at all that eventually we are going to have a full-on meltdown in the debt market. And that's going to be obviously at a time of their choosing. They're not done. And I've been telling people, I don't believe they're done. They're going to keep this going until the selection cycle they know who the new president is already. We don't get to choose. We have no voice. We have no representation here, but that's a whole other story. But they're going to try to keep the illusion of the market real. Again, doesn't make no sense. This market, things that should matter, like PE ratios and forward guidance, this doesn't matter anymore. It's all about the Fed, easy money, propping up this market. Just for people to understand how this works, it's a very, very simple mechanism. When a central bank buys all the debt and they keep rates suppressed, it literally opens a doorway for cash to move and make its way into risk assets or equities or the stock markets of the world. And what this does is inflate bubbles. And they know that. Not only does it inflate bubbles to the upside, it creates inverse bubbles. So you get distortions across the spectrum of asset classes. With commodities, their prices are amazingly suppressed, none more so than gold and silver right now. And again, this is eventually going to balance out. I mean, we don't get corrections anymore. We don't get pullbacks in the market. Normal things. It's just higher, 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 higher. And this is, again, is the Fed buying the debt, buying the stock market. Yes, the Fed buys the market. The Fed props up the stock market by buying large cap stocks. They have a trading desk at the New York Fed. People can look this up for themselves. Although they say they don't buy the market, they do. It's called the Plunge Protection Team, which is a real thing. So we're seeing that in action right now. Not only are we getting a precipitous drop in the 10-year yield this morning, we're also seeing the stock market up like 200 points, the Dow. So this is the Fed. They're weakening the dollar. They're buying the debt, and they're buying the stock market, period. Right in front of our face, just as we believed would happen.
Well, let's go back to something you just said about we have no choice, and they've already selected the leader. What prompts you I know what prompts you to say, but for the people that don't know, what prompted you to say that, and how does it connect to the economic situation that we're in and that we will be in?
Well, presidents are no longer elected. They haven't been elected for a very long time. They are selected by those that run the world, which is central banks. Obviously, central banks are the government of the world. Central banks control the economy. They control the world markets. They control the world financial system. So henceforth, they control the world. They want to put puppet leaders in positions where they will continue to inflate. They will call on the central banks to weaken, in this case, the Federal Reserve, to weaken the dollar, to keep rates suppressed, to find reasons to spend and spend and spend and spend. And all this is doing, the side effect of all this, this has been going on for a while now, is quite obviously inflation. They're trying to pawn this off as no one saw this coming. People that follow my work and your work know that this is totally wrong. The Federal Reserve knows exactly what they're doing. Every move they make is calculated. We are living in the side effect of what central banks have put into effect many years ago. We're probably living 25 years in the past. This is all just being scripted. It's all being played out. Central bank's job is to continue to inflate. As a matter of fact, the biggest secret that people are not supposed to know is a central bank's power resides in just one thing only, and that is the ability to inflate. Henceforth, why they will choose a leader who will make sure that they expand wars and find any other reason that you can dream about, think about, and fantasize about to continue to expand the debt. The more debt a central bank can issue, the stronger they become, not the weaker. This was a big lie that was being sold via QAnon. Trump was trying to bankrupt the Fed by having him spend like that. No, all he was doing was making the Fed stronger. Again, more debt makes the central bank more powerful, exponentially more powerful. So that's what we have here today and around the world. We have central banks coordinating with their respective leaders to continue to inflate, to continue to pull cash into the now. And it must function that way in greater and greater amounts because that's the nature of the beast. We have a debt-based economic model, which demands that more debt be pulled into the now. Just to put another reality check on this, since the whole debt ceiling debate, we've now increased the debt here about $1.5 trillion, with another $1.5 trillion slated just till the end of the year. It can't stop. And the moment we could stop it, we could kill the central banking system. It's very, very simple. You want to kill a central bank? You want to kill the Fed? Prevent them from issuing $1 single dollar of debt. Then you kill the central banking system and we could take it back. But again, what are they doing? They're creating slaves to the system. They're creating dependency on the system. This is why we're seeing what we are seeing now, this move to a neo-communist fascist kind of a situation here. And people, they want to be taken care of from cradle to grave. They're asking for it. They're going to get it. And that's why we have the situation we have, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And this new one world government run by central banks, they're the ones pulling the strings, and everything else is just an illusion.
You said something. I was going to talk about that, but you took some of the words out of my mouth, because I remember when we were talking the last time, you said that they're trying to make a feudal system, a two-tier system, the haves and the have-nots, and they're trying to make the have-nots be totally dependent upon government and the central banks. Do you think that that's even more relevant today and more true today than it was when you said it a year ago to me personally?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, you can just see it, and they want more people dependent on the system. Again, there's a lot to this. A new system is already coming. It's getting rolled out here. A trans-border, worldwide kind of financial system, and unfortunately, or depending on you how you want to look at this, we're going to see a lot more conflict, a lot more war, a lot more human suffering moving forward. See, the BRIC nations, they know what's coming. They are trying to sidestep what is being set up here. With trying to eliminate the U.S. dollar here as the world reserve currency, and all this is going to lead to is war, death, and suffering on a grand scale worldwide. And it's all being set up right now. All the pawns are in place here. It's just a matter of how it's going to unfold. They got to kill the current system. That's pretty obvious before they can issue in a new one. And we do have central banks collectively still in a race to the bottom, deliberately sucking the purchasing power out of their currency. I mean, this whole thing since day one with regard to raising rates and how it's going to eventually cause inflation to drop has been a farce. It was never meant to do that. All it's doing by the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, Bank of England, raising rates here is cutting off the availability of credit to U.S. small businesses around the world, destroying the consumer again, leading to this two-tier society, fulfilling the corporate agenda. That's what's going on here. It's something I've been warning about for, I don't know, 10 years now. Now it's in our face. So what they're doing, central banks, is by incrementally raising rates, putting more and more and more and more pressure on small businesses around the world. You see, the thing that people don't understand is small businesses function by being able to acquire credit to buy things, and then they pay it back monthly, however it works. But these big corporations, they don't work like that. Most of them have huge cash stashes of cash around, so they don't need it. And this is again empowering the corporate agenda, and unfortunately at the expense of everything else here. And this is why you're seeing store closures, you're seeing ghost malls, all this stuff here kind of popping up. And this is going to get a lot worse. And again, going back to the have-not situation, we're seeing more and more people that used to be middle class falling to the lower rung, trying to claw themselves back up by borrowing. Unfortunately, they're assuring themselves that this will never happen. They're making certain that these kinds of people, and it's most people, unfortunately, who were prior members of the middle class, now in the lower rung of society, they're just done. And that's where this is going here. Extreme haves, extreme have-nots are wiping out of the middle class on a global scale. And I mean, the grand finale is going to be, the market, when the market actually implodes on itself. And, it's going to, the real crash is not going to start or in the stock market. It's going to start and in the debt market. And it's interesting to see how it's unfolding, especially now with what the Fed is doing right now today. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch the 10-year yield drop 12 basis points in just a matter of a few hours. That is direct intervention by the Federal Reserve, and they're buying more debt. They're buying it all because that's where central bank power resides, in their ability to issue debt in any amount and buy whatever they want. You see, what people don't understand is central banks are sovereign entities, meaning they answer to no one. The Federal Reserve, the ECB, they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, with no oversight, no voting, no anything. They are sovereign entities who answer to no other higher power. Alan Greenspan told us straight out that there is no government authority. Alan Greenspan being a former Fed chair, there is no higher authority than the central bank. They can do what they want to do whenever they want, and no government authority has the power to overthrow whatever they do.
Yeah. Back to something with this political charade that's going on. Do you think that this stuff with Biden and his son and the stuff with Trump is theatrical to keep the people's minds away from what is happening in the debt market and what is happening economically and the policies that are being implemented by the central banks?
Oh, absolutely. It's all theater. The Bidens, the Trumps, whatever it is, and if as long as they can keep people locked into that kind of a mindset of hatred or whatever, and it distracts them from what's really going on. It's a common deception that has been used since time immemorial. If people get fixated and focused on something, and there's no other greater divider than politics and religion. I guess the two of them here, and they both kind of play in together. But you keep people locked into that kind of thing. It's they can't function. You talk to someone. I mean, there are some there are extremes on both ends, and that's what they're trying to do. But again, it's just theater. It doesn't matter. We have no say so. We have no voice. We do not have the power to choose. They want you to think you do, but you don't. They put in whoever they want, who's going to play the game, who's going to again cause the central banks to become more powerful. Central banks have had this plan in effect for over 100 years. The Federal Reserve since 1913, playing a long game. I urge people to read The Creature from Jekyll Island. It outlines what was planned back then and how we are exactly on that pathway right now. And almost at the end of it, actually. And this has all been foretold to us, where we're going, how it's playing out, the tactics they would use to keep this going. It's all there. It's a fascinating read, and I really hope everybody listening to this right now will go out, and pick up the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a fascinating prophecy. It really is.
What puts you in that mind state that this is all theater? Because it had to be a lot of events that led up to you realizing that this stuff is a charade, and they want to distract you while they're ripping you off and implementing policies that are detrimental to the security of the average person.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing it's always been like this. You want to go back as far in time as you want to go. It's always the same tactic. Because it works. This is how the few have ruled over the many for a millennium. And it's just never going to stop. I mean, today, maybe it's more in our face, because we have social media, you have the propaganda ministry, the mainstream outlets, fist feeding us all this stuff here. I mean, I'm talking about double fist feeding up to your freaking elbows. But it's the truth. That's where, and the people are, it's so crazy. But it's just, once you step back and you say, hey, you know what, this is really what's going on. It's amazing how many people have said to me, wow, Greg, it took a lot, but I get it. I see what's going on now. It's so evident to me. It's like an epiphany. It's like like a switch, and people go, oh my goodness, and I think people are waking up. I've been on a bunch of shows as of late. I don't do too many interviews these days, as you probably know. You're one of the select few that I actually do. It's evident. I think people know when something is wrong. They're not that stupid. And I think people are starting to wake up to what's happening. At least I hope so. And I don't think there's not enough of us to do anything about it, because we need a revolution. I've been telling people this for years. We need a revolt. We need a revolution here, but we won't get it. And why? Because the dependency on the system, the deliberate creation of slaves to the current system, they're dependent on it. So why would they revolt against it? You and me and the people that listen to our work, we're a unique set of individuals, and we're a direct threat too. So shows like yours and shows like mine, I think we're probably on borrowed time. I've been saying this for the longest time. They're gonna try to curtail the information. You got to watch what you say, and you probably know this already on these kind of things. You got to watch your tongue. This is why I despise a lot of the platforms that are out there. But if you're careful and you don't maybe blatantly put things in front of people, you let them figure it out for themselves. That's what I'm all about. I don't want to tell anybody what they should do, how they should think. I want people to ponder the stuff that you and I talk about, and then make up their own minds. Okay, is what we're covering here, does it sound like we're all from Mars or some other planet, or are you seeing exactly what we're talking about? I think most people are going to say, you know what, these guys are right.
Well, Greg, I remember when you and I were talking last time, you were talking about how the system is made on debt and how it has to have debt to sustain itself. And the minute that it stops printing debt, it implodes. Could you elaborate on that more for the people who may be listening or who will listen later on what you mean by that, and give them just a little insight to that? Because a lot of people don't know that, because I talk to people and they don't understand that, and they don't know that.
No, No, we don't, because we don't have a commodity backed currency. When you lose the currency, we were supposed to have a gold standard, okay? And that's how this nation was set up. Our forefathers were smart enough to realize that we needed to have a commodity backed currency. When it went to this fiat, what is it? Fiat means so let it be. That's what we have, fiat currency. This piece of paper, I'm going to draw some numbers on it, and that's what it's going to be worth. Once we went to that and it was taken over by the central banks who now can just add digits to a screen, or before were able to do that, just print it out of thin air. Central banks produce debt. That's all they produce. They don't produce anything else. They manipulate and play with debt. That's all they do. The dollars that we work for, okay, we don't own these things with the pieces of paper with numbers printed on them. Okay, we work for the privilege to borrow these bills, just like our nation does, from the central bank or from wherever else they're going to borrow these from. Like the Treasury. The Treasury here sells. How does it work? The U.S. Treasury has to sell debt in order to fund itself. But who's the number one buyer of U.S. debt? The Federal Reserve. Okay, everyone knows this. But again, central banks produce one product, and that product is debt. The bills that we work for are not ours. We don't own them. They're owned by the issuing central bank, in this case, the Federal Reserve, and they're owed back to the issuing central bank, in this case, the Federal Reserve, plus interest they create out of nothing. It's amazing. So these are not units of wealth. These are not backed by anything. They're units of debt. They're IOUs. All those bills in your pocket and the zeros that you think are in your bank account, they're not yours. You work for the privilege to borrow them. That is all. People think it's theirs, but it's not. And that's how the debt-based economic model works. And the debt, in order to function, in order for the system to function, even at its current level, the debt must exponentially be increased. This is what creates inflation here. Henceforth, why, since the inception of the Federal Reserve, the U.S. dollar has now lost 98% of its purchasing power. 98, and they want it all. I mean, central banks collectively, I've been telling people this for 10 years, they're in a race to the bottom. They're trying to see who can devalue their currency faster. Again, because where does the central bank's power reside? We covered it already. In one thing, its ability to inflate or its ability to issue debt. We take that away, central banking dies. If we can kill one central bank, just one, we will start a domino effect, and they'll all start to die. Why do you think, for example, there was this big debate during the debt ceiling? Oh, we got to raise it. Oh, we got to raise it. And you had Janet Yellen with that face. This is Janet Yellen's face. Imagine me with a bowl haircut. This is what she looks like to me. So you got, she's practically on her knees. Oh, please, we got to do, because she knew if we did not raise the debt ceiling, and the Federal Reserve would have started to die. And then that would have started within a matter of months, although it would have hurt the economy at first. It would have hurt the economy bad, because we were now we're still locked into this debt-based system. We would have had what's called a credit freeze. It would have locked up, no transactions. It would have been pretty traumatic. But then we could have built ourselves up out of it, and we could have killed the world central bank. Kill one, you kill them all. But there's not enough people. Again, what are they doing? They're creating slaves to the system. They're creating dependency on the system. Their system. We don't want their system. I don't think you want it. I know I don't want it. I think the people that are watching know we should be able to take back. Who said that we need a central bank to run the economy, to run the financial markets, to run the financial system? Why? Why do we need that? No, we can do it. This is supposed to be a country that can govern itself. How can we possibly govern ourselves if we have, in this case, the Federal Reserve, who runs the economy, who runs the markets, who runs this financial system? You cannot govern yourself if you cannot control the cash, period. Whoever controls the cash controls the world. That's the truth.
And so, again, also when we talked, you were telling me that when this thing finally blows up, it will be more devastating than a nuclear explosion, a nuclear strike. And you said that the loss of life will be biblical. Could you elaborate on that for the people who are watching?
Of course. It comes down to resources. It comes down to the availability of resources. What's eventually going to happen here, I I mean, it's about control. What we're seeing now is a move towards more control, and they want, again, more people dependent on the system, the people that they can control. Okay. Eventually, what's going to end up happening here is we're going to get a meltdown in the debt market, and it's going to be unbelievable. We're existing in a nightmare situation. That is this hyper bubble in debt, and the more debt that is added to the system allows this system to function. Without that, without the relentless increasing or pulling of debt into the now from the future, without doing that, we stop. The whole system locks up. Currencies don't work. You can't get your cash out of the bank. You can't buy things. So we're going to run into a situation. It's called a credit freeze. This is what's occurring. What people don't know, okay, a big secret maybe because it's kind of a long time ago, the big last meltdown of 2008 wasn't the stock market that was the big deal, that it was the stock market that was crashing. That's what they were convincing people of. The truth of the matter is interbusiness lending was stopping. We were marching right into a credit freeze. So what did they do? They started pumping capital injections into the system, billions and billions and billions of dollars, to try to free up the credit system, to get credit flowing, or debt. They call it credit, but it's debt. To get debt flowing from one business to another. Interbusiness lending was stopping. Everything would stop. Transactions stop. ATM cards don't work. Credit cards don't work. Nothing. That was the real issue why we got the capital injections into the system to try to free it up. Now, the system is so much more toxic than it was then. I don't even know if they could even do it. And even if they tried, it would create runaway inflation on an unprecedented scale. We already have a situation where central banks have flooded the world with trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars at face value, not even talking about derivatives associated with that. That's a whole other talk. But again, a credit freeze would occur. Transactions would stop. Resources the stores would get cleaned out in a matter of about hours. You see what happens before a big storm, right? Everyone goes out, they clean off the shelves. Well, if people started to realize the system is locking up and their currency is becoming worthless, or it's not, they would start to riot. They would run through the streets. And I think people would unfortunately they would revert into a primal state. And imagine, like, I can't feed my kids. I can't get food. But my neighbor has some kids and has food in their house. I'm going to get it from them. And most people are armed these days. So it would turn into a bloodbath on an unprecedented scale. But the thing is, we're going to run into a resource problem on a biblical level, and people are going to die. People are going to kill each other. It'll be absolute pandemonium. And this would be the best way. And I think this is what they're going to do. The best way to exert maximum control on the people, exert martial law or whatever they have to do, because, out of chaos comes order. Okay. And that's what they would do. Allow chaos to manifest itself on a grand scale. And then step in and issue in their new system. They have so much in store for us, bad things. That, what do I tell everybody every Friday? Today being Friday, love each other, care about each other, and be charitable. We need each other. Forget about all this other nonsense, because we're going to need to rely on each other moving forward, because what they have in store for us ain't pretty.
I see the chat on YouTube is not showing. I don't know why they do this from time to time, but I'm looking at the chat on StreamYard in my dashboard, and I'm going to highlight some. One of the viewers wanted to ask you this question right here, so I'll highlight it. There it is. Does he have an opinion on companies, corporations, etc., doubling down on woke even after losing money like Disney?
Look, I think. If I'm going to own a company, and I don't care what their philosophy might be, I want to be paid to hold the stock. Like Disney does pay a dividend. I want to own dividend-paying stocks. I want to be in the right sectors. If I had to look at something right now, I've been telling people commodities, get commodity exposure. Energy companies, I think, are good places to be. I think cost of energy is going to be much, much higher than it is today, based on a lot of factors. It has and supply and demand is only a fraction of it. The devaluation of the currencies, the fact that it can't buy much anymore, that's going to get progressively worse, despite the fact that they're trying to lie to us and tell us that inflation is going to get better at one particular time. I think people need to look at energy and commodities. There are a lot of ways to gain exposure to this. I have a free newsletter, which you can sign up for. It's absolutely free on my website, traderschoice.net. I've sent out at least 5 newsletters going over a whole bunch of exchange traded funds or ETFs, which would give you exposure, give people to a broad base of commodities. Some of them even pay dividends. This is what people need to do. Oh, the best way, I think, what people, I mean, it won't pay you anything, but it will in the long run, is to own physical assets, gold, silver, more specifically. You know me, I'm a diverse guy. I'm into a lot of different things. I people also think people need exposure to some cryptocurrency, a lot of things. You got to be out there. But with regard to these woke companies, that's all going to turn around too. But don't just, and throw money at anything unless you understand it. But it should make sense to people, honestly, that they need exposure to commodities. Because again, let's put that. Why would I say that? Okay, we have a situation here where the stock market is in a hyper bubble of hyper bubbles. Why is the stock market in a hyper bubble of hyper bubbles? Because the debt market is in a hyper bubble of hyper bubbles. Eventually, the debt market hyper bubble is going to burst, and that's going to lead to an uncontrolled spiking in bond yields, 10-year yield, big sell-off there in the bond market, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the stock markets around the world. And cash, like I always say, it doesn't just grow wings and fly away to money heaven. It doesn't. You like that, right? It doesn't fly away. No, it just moves. It moves through the market in predictable patterns. When you have a debt market meltdown, cash bleeding out of the debt market, putting pressure on the stock market, cash is going to move into commodities. Generally, markets run into cycles: risk on, meaning stocks; risk off, meaning commodities. Generally, this is what happens, but we don't get that anymore. It's kind of a one-way ticket higher, and that is only because, again, the Federal Reserve in this case, central banks in this case, pumping the debt market, keeping rates suppressed, trying to keep that doorway open for the stock market to go higher and higher and higher. They know what they're doing. And they're doing this because they realize, just like last time, it's going to turn around. What do we have? We had the super banks like Goldman Sachs betting against their own clients when the market went down. Would they pay a measly $6 billion fine? You got to be kidding me. They probably made 20, 50 times that betting against their own clients. So they know they're going to get caught, but what are they going to do? Are they going to put really a CEO of one of these super banks in jail? It'll never happen. The CEO of a Wall Street bank is probably the most powerful person in the world, next to the Federal Reserve chair, who is the most powerful person in the world. This world is not run by presidents, kings, queens, monarchs, or dictators. It's run by central banks. And once people realize that, I think they're all going to be a lot better off.
Speaking on the commodities, wouldn't it be as you said, wouldn't it be a good idea to own commodities, seeing the scarcity of commodities, especially when this system implodes, and how people will be vying to try to have some type of tangible assets, but they'll be scarce?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are exchange traded funds that will give people exposure to these kind of things if that's what you want. But I think a lot of people who follow our work probably like to hold it in their hand. And I say, if you want to have one asset that you can hold in your hand, that would be silver. I think it's the most undervalued asset in the world. I tell people, just do a little homework on this. Look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, gold ratio, and then gold silver ratio. And I think that it's just so in your face. I think we're going to eventually see a Dow gold ratio of 1-to-1. Right now, we have multiples on top of that. I mean, what is gold today? 2,000 and something an ounce, and we have a stock market at what? The Dow what's the Dow at right now? I don't even know, but it's multiples higher. We could easily get a 1-to-1, and then a 15-to-1 on silver, and you could just see the what I'm talking about here. Where's the bottom? Where's the bottom in the stock market? We don't know. No one knows. But all we do know is that a Dow 6,000 is when the Fed jumped in here and started buying. That was QE1, or quantitative easing 1, at Dow 6,000. Then we had quantitative easing 2. Then we had Operation Twist. And we had every other thing you could think about and things you can't dream about. And the Fed's been pumping this market ever since. We don't know where the bottom is. The bottom of this market could be 3,000. We don't know where the bottom is. But wherever it is, I believe we're going to see a 1-to-1 with gold. And I've been telling people that for years.
Well, how long do you think that they can suppress gold and silver, being that now the London Gold Exchange is losing its position as the BRICS nations have their own gold exchange and commodity-based system? How long can the West-dominated fiat system continue to maintain itself and suppress commodity prices?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we have to see what the BRICS nations are going to do. Are they actually going to back the currency with gold. And if they did, they would have to revalue it. I mean, there's not enough gold, so they'd have to revalue gold much, much higher than it is. It's a question that needs to be answered, and we need to see how that's going to play out moving forward here. I think it's a direct threat. Obviously, I think the U.S. dollar is under multiple front threat or attack right now, rightly so. No doubt about it. I think countries around the world are frankly sick. Other nations around the world and people are frankly sick and tired of the domination, the U.S. dollar dominated market, and with the central bank that's doing nothing but inflate, sucking the purchasing power out of the dollar here. And what's the United States' greatest export product? It's two things. It's inflation and it's propaganda. So I used to tell people it's inflation, but I think just second to that, or maybe just on par, would be propaganda. And the rest of the world is really, they've had enough. And this whole thing, we're living in a very, very interesting time. And things are gonna change. They're changing already right before our eyes. We got the lies, the deceptions. Just as at the end of last year, I said one of my biggest themes that we were going to see come this year, 23, was going to be more lies, more deceptions, more propaganda, and I think that's exactly what's happening here. I mean, just as an example of that, we got here in the United States manufacturing and factory activity continuing to slow down by their own numbers. But meanwhile, just like 2 weeks ago, we had Frankenstein, trying to tell us how strong the factory and manufacturing sector is. But I mean, it doesn't matter what the data says. They can twist it any way they want to, because Bidenomics is working. And it's working because he's telling you so. I love how these authority figures have to get our lives to us.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to think for yourself, and if you do, you become a threat, like you and me. We definitely are a threat.
I want to play a short clip for you that goes down the line of what you were just saying, and then I want you to, after the clip is over, I want you to give your take on this, because it's dealing with the dollar system. It's about a minute clip.
Sure.
So hopefully they'll let me play it. Sometimes they
I
don't.
think the idea of de-dollarization is one which is going to be necessary. You have two aspects to it. One is the efforts of the United States to dictate the rules of trade and currency to all nations, which is the basis of the dollar system, or the petrodollar system, is no longer valid. This was a neo-colonial system that was imposed largely through the military force of the United States and NATO, regime change, for example, against Gaddafi, the attempt to overthrow the Assad government, the Iraq attack, and now the Ukraine war, so to try to weaken Russia. But it's not going to work. Many countries around the world, especially in the so-called global south, are now moving out from under this so-called rules-based order. And this new deal between France and China is an example of that. You also had the Chinese involvement in the rapprochement between Syria and Iran. Saudi Arabia and Iran. We also see trade going between India and Russia with a ruble-rupiah transaction basis. So we're in an era where the unipolar order doesn't function. And we see it with the collapse of the banks in the United States, the collapse of the Swiss giant Credit Suisse, the toppling, or the teetering, I should say, of the Deutsche Bank. So we're moving into a new era in which the emphasis will be on multilateralism rather than rule by one unipolar power.
Absolutely fascinating. The guy is on point, and it's exactly what we're talking about. It's amazing that I never saw that, but thank you for showing that. And I think people, after hearing that and then listening to you and I talk, I mean, come on. I mean, it's so on. It's so dead on. It's scary. It really is. But it's simple. Look, people ask me sometimes, and probably you too, how do you come up with these things? How do you foresee these things? It's not that hard. If we know what they want to do, we know what their goals are, it makes it very simple for us to know where they're going to go and what they're going to do to all of us. And I tell people, be ready for anything. There's going to be another false flag, another scamdemic, a pandemic, whatever. They're going to throw things at us that we can't even dream about at all in our worst nightmares. But it's all coming down the pike as they try to rearrange the deck chairs, so to speak. And unfortunately, a big side effect of what that gentleman was just talking about, and what you and I are talking about right here, is the propagation and expansion of war and human suffering and death and pain. That is coming as well. It's already happening. I mean, just look what they're doing to society right now. This two-tier society, these extreme haves, extreme have-nots. Do these people on the bottom rung, you think they want to be there? Wondering where they're going to get their next meal from? 61, according to their own numbers, 61% of working American families are living paycheck to paycheck. Without one paycheck, they end up in the street. Does that sound like a booming economy to you? Or does that sound like a government system that is failing? Or a central bank system that is exerting its power right over these people? Because that's what's really going on here.
And I brought up a point the other day on the program, and I brought up the government statistics. And according to the government itself, it says that it would take $20 billion or less to completely eradicate homeless across the United States. I said this must be planned, because how can you find money for war, for Ukraine, for weapons development, for all of this other stuff, but you ignore the problem at home, which is a national security threat with people becoming homeless? So this must be a planned move to bring people into poverty. What say you on that?
You just nailed it to the wall. They got money for everything. Expanding. You see, the thing is, war, the propagation of war, the expansion of war generates more cash for the corporations, the military industrial complex, than any other endeavor on earth. With regard to having people fall to the lower rung of society, they're easy to control. That's what they're doing. This is a deliberate, exactly like you said. This has all been planned out decades ago. I've been telling people for 10 years or longer now that if they're a member of the middle class, they have a tattoo on their face in the shape of a target. You are a target. They're coming after you. And they want you gone one way or the other, and they want you suppressed. They want to make your life very difficult. They want you to suffer. They want to make it very difficult for you to think, because you have so much going on. Again, the more people suffer, the more they have to worry about how they're going to fill their bellies, the more they have to worry about how they're going to pay bills and take care of their children or whatever it might be, or themselves or their spouses or whatever it might be, the less they can think about things that we are talking about, because this is a direct threat to what they're doing. Well, people like you and I sitting here talking about these kind of topics that you're never going to hear this stuff on the mainstream ever. And there's a reason for that. Do people actually wonder why it is that when you watch the mainstream propaganda, it's all the people towing the line telling you some kind of fairy tale, and then you listen to this kind of stuff and it's a completely different message? Well, maybe people should ponder that. And this is, again, why you, me, and everybody listening to this right now is a direct threat to what they are trying to do. Because you and I, they don't want us to talk. They want to keep our mouths shut. And unfortunately, I like I said earlier, I think we're on borrowed time.
And speaking of the mainstream media, I often say this too. It's not just the mainstream media; it's a lot of the so-called alternative media that are doing the exact same thing. They may brush across a few issues, but nothing too pertinent to your security and to what would hurt the system. And this is why a lot of them still prosper and a lot of them still grow, because they don't talk about the issues that you and I are talking about and going into depth on. What say you on that?
No, they never will. I mean, they can't. They can't. You turn on any of these propaganda ministries, they're told what to say, how to say it. They're actors. They're just pushing a freaking theme on people, and they're trying to sway people's minds into one direction, one direction, one direction. They don't want you to think. The biggest threat to the establishment is people that can think outside the box. People that say who are questioning. People need to question things, but they don't want that either. You must remain in line. You must conform. Forget about that. You and I, we're rebels. We're the resistance. Just by raising, we tell people for years, raise your awareness, pay attention to what is going on around you. And you'll get that epiphany. You realize what's going on. And the more people that we can wake up, the stronger we all become collectively.
Another highlight, I want to highlight this again. Someone is saying this to you. Will they allow it? Okay, they're going to allow it. It's highlighted on my end. I don't know if it's on. There it is. Once you, what? No, that's not it. Here it is. So it says.
Yeah, this is true. I like this Green Lord. Whoever this person is, they're on top of it.
Yeah, he's on top of. And he says, I heard something like 80% of Americans can't get $1,000 together, and
they can't get $400. $400 together. Yeah, they can't get $400. Yeah, I mean, it's what this is a booming economy. This is a thriving populace. No, these are people that are suffering. They're suffering greatly, and unfortunately, their suffering is going to get worse unless they take action. And action is going to require pain. Action requires revolution. Action requires revolting against the system. And the biggest farce is, again, the illusion of choice. People believe that some savior-like figure is going to be put behind the resolute desk and going to grow a halo over their head, and all of a sudden, the whole world is going to become some kind of a utopian environment. No, nothing could possibly be further from the truth. It ain't going to happen. It's the central banks who run the show. And once people, and everything else is just a deception, it's a distraction, it's causing a divided population. This divide and conquer has been the MO of the powers that be since time immemorial, and it works. These people hate these people for these reasons. These people hate these people back for even other reasons. We are not each other's enemies. They want you to think we are, and that's how they win. Once we realize that we are a worldwide family, I tell everyone on my blog, I was like, this isn't my thing. This is our thing. I feel like it's a worldwide family, and this is part of it. You're an extension of my family as well, and we got to take care of each other, period.
Yeah, and think about this. This shows so much contempt. I often say this to the audience. For the government to always have emergency appropriation bills for war, for weapons, for funding other countries, and then you have 80% of Americans that can't put together $400 or are living paycheck to paycheck. As you say, 61% are living paycheck to paycheck, and if they miss a day or a week of work, they may be evicted the next week. I mean, how much contempt can a government show towards the people that it governs when we look at stuff like that?
Well, they laugh in our face. They laugh in our face. They parade politicians out. They parade puppet presidents out, and they tell us how great we're doing. I mean, then people start to question themselves. They're like, hold on a minute. I can't make ends meet. I'm in debt beyond my eyeballs. I can't survive. But this guy is telling me that I'm doing great. So it must be me. It can't be them. It must be me. I must be doing something wrong. It's a grand deception. It's a super con job on an unprecedented scale. I mean, I hate these so-called authority figures that they float out trying to dictate our lives to us, trying to tell us, oh, no. What you're experiencing, that ain't true. This is how it really is. You know what I'm saying? It's insane.
But the majority of the people are still falling for the tricks, and they
always will. They always will.
Yeah. Isn't that scary though? Isn't that really scary though? For them to continue to not believe their pockets, but to believe what the government is telling them.
Exactly. Like Green Lord wrote, don't believe your lying eyes and ears. Your own eyes, your own ears, your own intuition, it's lying to you. because they're telling you how it is. It's unbelievable. It's so freaking crazy to think about the reality of things, and I don't know, man. It's and how they really are. I've been telling people forever, nothing is what it seems to be. Once you understand that, I tell people to question everything. When you even this, like for example, when people listen to me talk, don't believe a damn word I'm saying. Really don't. Just think about it yourself, do your own research, ponder it. I believe people know the truth when they hear it. They know the truth when they hear it. I used to be real good friends with Greg Hunter. Don't talk to him. I haven't talked to him for years. He freaked out on me a long time ago. But anyway, but the guy's smart. He actually said, Greg, people know the truth when they hear it. And it just rung a bell in my head. And people know it. They know when the people aren't that stupid. They know when they're being lied to for the most part. They know when they're being deceived. Unless, of course, you're turning on the propaganda ministry, because they got very good actors there who, with a straight face, will tell you whatever they want you to believe, and they'll seem so sincere about it, But these are all chosen. I mean, they're all chosen. They're all getting pretty high freaking paychecks. They're reading a script. They're reading a teleprompter. Talk about this. Say this. They got the little earpiece in here. Oh, no. Change the subject. Whatever they say. I mean, it's amazing. It's what they do. It's a grand deception. Unbelievable.
So where is the Fed taking the United States with this debt, and where is it taking the world as it continues to hyperinflate, and what does that mean to the average person in America and around the world?
I think that the global debt to GDP ratio is going to explode. The more and more debt is going to be created, and more debt being created is massively inflationary. So we're going to see the purchasing power of the currencies, all currencies, continue to dry up. We're going to see more inflation, especially food. You see, it's interesting what they do when they fist feed us, to our elbows. These inflation numbers, they're omitting food, and they're omitting energy, because they want you to believe, this is part of the propaganda, and I'm pointing over there because that's where the TV is. They want you to believe that the rising price of food and the rising prices of energy are temporary. It's going to go away. So let's not talk about that. But obviously it never goes away. It gets worse and worse. Food inflation is going to get much, much worse moving forward. Energy inflation is going to get much, much worse moving forward. And people need to allocate for that. I mean, those people that are being crushed right now and can't survive already, their lives are going to get a lot worse here, trying to feed themselves. What better way to control someone than to affect their ability to acquire food, number one, and then energy, obviously, to heat their house, to cool their house, stuff like that too. So it's all a control mechanism. It's no secret, it shouldn't be, why food inflation is outpacing everything else right now. Something I've covered that would happen many, many, many months ago. I said, watch what's going to happen. Food inflation is going to continue to outpace. And I'm going to say that right now. It's going to continue to outpace. And I think with regard to energy, that's another thing. We're going to see that get a lot worse too moving forward. And they're going to tell you it's all in your imagination. No. And then you're going to blame the war. It's the war. It's the war that we're throwing tens of billions, hundreds of billions, soon to be in the trillions at. And that's not inflationary either. And where does that cash come from? I wonder where that comes from. See, because we don't have a war chest somewhere. We don't have a room stocked full of $100 bills from the floor to the ceiling. No, it has to be created magically out of thin air. And where do we get that from? The central banks. Yes, they're willing to loan all that cash. Yeah, and they fund both sides of the war too. It's unbelievable. It's really crazy what they do.
So what does that mean for the average person on the street? Because as we just said, 20 billion could eradicate homelessness. You say 61% of the middle class is living paycheck to paycheck. Over 80% can't come up with $400. And we're talking about food prices rising at an enormous rate. People are already having to choose between medicine or lights, food or rent. Where is this going concerning that stage of inflation, food inflation?
More dependency. They got every corner locked up. They're going to create more slaves to the system. more slaves to the system. So this is just scratching the surface here. And unfortunately, like I said, middle class people have a target on their face. They've had it and they can't get it off. They can scrub and scrub and scrub, and they're in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. We're all in a lot of trouble. We're all going to have to deal with this. I don't care where you may stand on the economic ladder. I think people, unfortunately, are really, really they're in a lot of trouble, unfortunately. But that's it, man. But they pay attention to what's going on. Try to bet against the debt. Become your own central bank, holding hard assets. I mean, from a financial standpoint, get together with like-minded people. Pay attention to shows like this, and I think you have the best chance of getting through all this. But just be ready. Be ready for anything, because if you think things are bad, they're going to get a lot worse. There's no doubt about it.
And my last question to you is this: where do you see things going in the next 6 months to a year? And do you see civil insurrection, civil war, revolution? Do you see global revolution? Do you see massive hunger?
I think it's very possible that we're going to start to see people, as their lives deteriorate, get angry and maybe take to the streets. But I think that will be squashed very rapidly, and it's not going to be covered. You have to understand, when people start to revolt, like all that stuff that was going on in France recently, barely any coverage on the mainstream. And I mean barely. You had to search for it. A lot of it was covered here in alternative media, but they won't allow you to see these things, because you see that kind of stuff, it starts this stuff to get worse. People get hyped up. Oh, look at these people are doing something. I got to do it too. So they're going to hide that from people. They're going to take great lengths to keep any type of revolution or revolt hidden from the people. There's no free media anymore. It's not real. They report on what they want you to know, and then they take that and they twist it every which way they possibly can. Yeah, I would not be surprised to see more people waking up, more people realizing, hey, you know something, I gotta do something. So we'll probably see more of that. And I think we're going to see more currency devaluation, more inflation, more lies telling us that everything is good, even though we know it's not. So unfortunately, and more war. The war is going to expand, more funding for this war, and other wars are going to break out. Again, there's endless money for that, but not for anything else.
And closing, Green Lord says, starving? Here, take this jab. We'll feed you. He's been on point all day.
He's good, Green Lord. I like this. I like this person. This is a person that has it down. They know what they're talking about. I like it.
So Greg, thank you for giving me another hour of your day, man. I'll send you the link for the show so that you can have it.
Yeah, please do that. I want people to hear this stuff. And I'm going to urge everyone that's listening to this, share this. Give it a thumbs up. Those thumbs up are very valuable. It lets the algorithm say, hey, people like this, and the show gets shown. So thumbs ups are appreciated. Sharing the video is greatly appreciated. Let's wake up some people. This is our thing, and it's time for us to take the system back.
I appreciate it, Greg. I'll send you the link in about 15 minutes, man. Hey, be blessed, be safe. And I saw you in your car. I saw you drag racing. Hey, that's yours?
Yeah.
That's your car? Man, that thing is nice.
Thank you.
All right, man. Be blessed. Thank you.
You too. Take it easy.
Everybody, we'd like to thank Greg for joining us on this episode of the Red Pill Diaries. Again, we're just trying to inform each and every one of you of what's going on so that you can make up your own mind. I often say, please put that gray matter to work so that you can deduce for yourself, so that you can think for yourself, so that you can come to some kind of educated hypothesis for yourself. Because these people are not giving you the truth, and some of your favorite channels are lying to you. Some of your favorite channels, guess what they're doing? They're using your ignorance to benefit them financially, and to put them over into a larger circle of the benefactors, of those who I would say are parasites. They're spiritual, economic, and mental parasites on you. Don't be a host body. Please exercise this brain. Please exercise this brain. Don't let me tell you what to do. Don't let me tell you what to think. Don't let Greg tell you what to think. Do the research yourself. Stop being lazy. Remember, when there's something that you really want, guess what you do? you go and you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the effort, because that's something that you hold dear to you, right? So if you want the truth, I'm asking you to do the same. I see No Way Out is in the building. But we're about to close out the show. I want you, No Way Out, and others to go back and rewatch the show. I want everybody to be blessed. I might be back later on today to do a second broadcast. I want to take the time out right here, right now, to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time. This is what I say to you, and I will continue to say to you. Time is the greatest commodity that anyone has. It is an unrenewable commodity. So it is so precious and so valuable, because once you use it up, you can never get it back again. So I hope that we have given you something that is equal to or greater to the time that you have given us. On that note, I go out the same way I always come in, with love in my heart for each and every one of you who love the truth, but know that the true and living God, he will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Please hit the like button, share the video. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. And I love each and every one of you all.